Something special is going on with the St. Louis Blues, as since hiring Jim Montgomery, the team has been on an absolute tear, and that includes a 7-game point streak capped off with this OT winner from Dylan Holloway, one of their offer sheet signees, Philip Broberg having a great season, Robert Thomas with 9 points in his last 4 games. It's not just that. They have some very, very high-level prospects to boot. We got to dive into everything St. Louis Blues coming up on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into the video, a quick reminder that over 90% of you watching this video are not subscribed. If you're a Blues fan, if you're a fan of some other team, doesn't matter. We have daily NHL content here, so it's completely free to hit the subscribe button to keep up to date on all the latest stories in the NHL. Mark, let's dive into the St. Louis Blues, and my goodness, they snapped up Jim Montgomery very, very quick once he was let go by the Boston Bruins, and since then, they have been rolling. And we can see they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're 5-1-1 in their last 7, which is the Jim Montgomery era, might you say. 5-1-1 since getting Jim Montgomery. Mark, there's a few factors going into this, a few things he's improving, but this team legitimately looks different. I know the new coach bump is a thing, but it looks like it might just be a bit more than that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the team, getting Jim Montgomery, I still can't put my hands around why the Boston Bruins fired Jim Montgomery. Yes, they had a bad start to the year. But looking at Montgomery, he has changed the look of this team completely. Like you said, 5-1-1 over their last 7 games with him. And it doesn't even just stop at the record. But we see a boost in their power play, in their penalty kill. In the first 22 games, you can see the 75.9% on the penalty kill. And this boost up to 82.3% over the last 7. You can look at the power play. Josh, looking at this, do you think this is just with a new voice in the room, or do you think the system Jim Montgomery's putting in is really changing this team?
I think a bit of both. I think a new voice always sparks the team. When you have an old coach let go and you bring in a new guy, you want to step up for them. But Jim Montgomery has been known to be maybe a bit more of an X and O's coach, a bit of a tactician, though some Blues fans and Bruins fans might be able to shed some more light on it. That was my understanding. But watching some Blues hockey, it does seem like the structure's a little bit better, at least on the power play and penalty kill. It still could be better, that's for sure. I mean, when you watch them play, it's not like it's turned into something elite. 21.1% is still not phenomenal, but that jump up from 21.1 in their last 7 from the 16.7 is notable. And it is a small sample size with just 7 games, but I do think that Montgomery's system has had a big effect, and you see the results on the ice. This St. Louis team is not an offensive dynamo by any means, but they're getting production out of some guys, notably Dylan Holloway right now, and that's what's helping propel them. Dylan Holloway's now up to 19 points in 29 games with 10 goals this season, but the big thing is this 7-game point streak coinciding with Jim Montgomery being hired. He has 6 goals, 5 assists for 11 points over his last 7 games. So, Mark, when we look at this team, I mean, some guys get that kind of boost from a new coach, that's for sure. But you can't deny that watching Blues hockey, while there's still some times that it feels like other teams are hemming them in their own zone, right? The St. Louis Blues don't really have that super top level talent to break open a game. Yeah, they have some great players like a Kyrou, like a Robert Thomas, who we'll talk about in a minute, like a Holloway who's starting to shine now, like a Broberg, but there's nothing really at that super high echelon. There's still going to be some tough moments, but to me, Jim Montgomery is making a tangible difference that I can see when I watch the Blues play.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Dylan Holloway alone, aside from everyone else, these was one of 2 players they got from the Edmonton Oilers during that whole little situation. The RFA, they claimed them, they gave up a few picks, which looks like compensation going the other way. But looking at the 2 players, especially Dylan Holloway coming into this team, he has provided offense to this team, and especially since Jim Montgomery's got there. In the past 7 games, he had a game with 1 goal, 1 assist. 1 goal, 1 assist. You can work your way through, and his magic and his game-winning goals being 2 games. The last one versus the Vancouver Canucks, and he had a game-winning goal versus the Winnipeg Jets as well. This kid has been awesome for this team, and the fact that they got him as a just qualifying offer from the Edmonton Oilers is a huge part in this, and it goes into the fact that he has 19 points in 29 games, working his way. You can look through this group. He is up among top of the leaders when we're looking at points on this team, 19 points in 29 games. Robert Thomas only played 17 games, having 19 points as well, so he would probably be at the top of the list. But you think, just looking at this team, Josh, that everything is finally starting to click together for the St. Louis Blues?
It seems like, and I feel free to pause, take a look at the rest of these players, because there's a lot of interesting names there. And also note that how little Dylan Holloway averages in terms of ice time this season. 15 minutes a game, putting up those numbers is very impressive. But yeah, like, I don't know, there's something about this team right now, and the new coach bump is a thing, but you can see that the brand of hockey seems a little better. Again, a 7-game sample size, it's very hard to tell whether that means something long term. And I mean, St. Louis is one of the better examples in recent memory of a team where you can't just take even the whole first half of the season into account. They can still come back and win a cup, right? But it does look like something is clicking. And you got to think when you get a new coach, the new coach bump is a thing. But when you're playing a slightly different style of hockey, your special teams seem improved. Those are some bona fide signs of a team being a lot better. But you're getting great production from other guys. Like, not to mention, Philip Broberg has had such a great year this year. He's up to 12 points in 17 games after missing most of the month of November. But you're also getting production from guys deep down the lineup. A guy like Zach Bolduc has been having a phenomenal season so far, especially in the last, 5, 10, 15 games. Blues fans have been really happy with his production. I mean, there's nothing that jumps off the paper at you at like, whoa, this is insane. But for 21 years old, I'm seeing Blues fans already pegging him as a top 6 role very soon, Mark. So, like, in the goaltending right now, Binnington and Hofer is not the best tandem in the league, but it's Binnington's spot right now until it's not Binnington's spot. That's kind of how it's always been with St. Louis. They do want him a cup. He'll still be there for a while. But yeah, like, the defense is what it is. I mean, there's definitely some rough contracts, there's definitely some aging players there, like a Ryan Suter on that second pairing, but the forwards right now seem to be clicking at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, and looking at this is the team that's dealing with injuries as well. Krug is not on the back end, which would make the defensive pairings look better instead of having someone like Matthew Kessel within the lineup. And that's no hate towards Matthew Kessel, but having a veteran like Krug in this lineup could help a lot. But Broberg has been a shining part for this. He came over after not being able to get much ice time with the Edmonton Oilers, coming in, jumping into a top 2 role on the top pairing for the St. Louis Blues. They couldn't have asked for anything better. You picked up 2 guys in free agency, it felt like, as they did qualify both players. But looking at the pieces they add, Josh, do you think this is a contending team, or do you think they're right in the midst of the almost perfect retool?
I mean, to me, it feels more like a retool. I just can't peg this team as a contender yet, but they have a lot of tools that could turn into something special. Again, if Dylan Holloway continues on this path, we just got to hint at someone else that might be coming up in a year or two, maybe next year. But like, Robert Thomas is Robert Thomas. This dude's phenomenal. Robert Thomas has 9 points in his last 4 games, and no, that's not a mistake. Go take a look at his hockey reference, look at his game log. 9 points in his last 4 games. I believe it's 3 goals, 6 assists. This guy has been on an absolute tear. He always has been. You could argue a lot of Blues fans are saying he should have made Team Canada. It is what it is. But right now, I think this retool is working very well with Holloway and Broberg panning out, I think, better than anyone could have possibly expected. But they also have good guys in the pipeline. If we flash that picture up that we just had a second ago, Jimmy Snuggerud, a guy that Blues fans really peg as being a very, very good player for them. This dude is averaging about a goal every 2 games in the NCAA. His freshman year, his sophomore year, and his junior year this year, 9 goals in 18 games, 22 points. Mark, it's not just him. They also have another guy in Dalibor Dvorsky, who's in his draft plus 2 year now, drafted in 2023, had a phenomenal year in the OHL last year with 45 goals in 52 games. He's there, I think, tied for 11th in the entire AHL with 10 goals in 22 games. This is a former 10th overall pick. He's 19 years old, putting up great numbers in the AHL. These 2 guys can come in and make a difference very soon. They're both, I would say, very close to being NHL ready, and I'm very excited to see how they can affect this Blues team, especially with the young talent that is making a name for themselves with the main roster.
Yeah, because that's the biggest thing when you're looking at the roster as a whole and just looking at the scoring. They still have young talent within this lineup. Jake Neighbors is someone making a name for himself this season. You still have veterans like Braden Shen. You have Colton Parayko. You have so many veterans and young players within this lineup with the emergence of a few guys coming up, like you said, through the pipeline. This is going to be a good team. It might not be this season, but for the next couple of years, we're going to see St. Louis continue to get better. And I think it really starts with the coaching, the new environment with this team, names being added to this roster. I think their window is going to open up in the next 2 years. And I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I feel like so many NHL teams feel like their window is going to coincide in these next few years. A ton of teams out east, ton of teams out west. But what we can say is St. Louis seems to be doing the right thing, and the fans seem to have this sense of optimism right now. The new coach feel is great. Dylan Holloway on a tear, Philip Broberg, these 2 things panning out better than they could have imagined. They got 2 good prospects. It's almost too good to be true, but we'll have to wait and see how it pans out in the long term. But let us know what you guys think down below about the St. Louis Blues, because honestly, they've been surprising me more than I expected. But that'll do it for this episode of Hat Trick HQ. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, it's completely free, and we'd really appreciate if you left us a little subscribe down below. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Mark Pye. We'll catch you in the next one.